Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Open Championship DFS Tactics show. Quite a bit to get into, a lot of weather to talk about. I figured out something on Wind Finder, so a mea culpa to you all. I just found something today on there. But we are here for all of your last minute lineup questions, your top pivots, your top fades, what storylines you're thinking about. The Open starts in about 4 hours, so counting down the minutes quite literally to finish up your lineups and get ready to watch the Open. So let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there. It's going to make you a much better gambler and a much smarter DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I'll place my betting card after the show this evening for both the Open and the Barracuda, as well as normally during the week I will post some research regarding the tournament. Didn't do so this week with the limited amount of data, especially for the Barracuda, and then with the Open Championship being on a rota. I generally like to do course based research, so be making sure to give me a follow there as I will pick that up next week. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Again, do you have any lineup questions? This player versus that player. You give me a player or two to build around, and we can try to make a lineup to combat the chalk in the area, as well as your entire contest, whatever DFS slate you're getting into. So let's figure out our tactics and do our strategy for the 2022 Open Championship. And we start by coming to the mixed condition model that I built for this week. And you will already see it is quite different from the Scottish Open in the sense that I have factored in wind quite a bit more. That is not a mistake I'm going to make twice. And in fact, Wind Finder has picked up a little bit anyway. But this is Scotland. The wind is going to play a factor. So we'll take a look at Wind Finder here after the price board and looking all that up. But I put 10% in strokes gained total, moderate and windy. It's Scotland. The wind's going to be a factor. 15% strokes gained approach. Pretty self-explanatory there. Most important stat, at least in my opinion, as well as just going to be important for St. Andrews. 10% in birdies gained, and a lot of times I talk about what I want to look at opportunities and birdies, but I went back and looked at the Scottish and two or three previous mixed condition models that I had built for various tournaments, and it was quite a mixed bag of results, looking for specifically if players who were better at birdies than opportunities and vice versa, better at opportunities than birdies. It was kind of a mixed bag, so I just wanted to look at birdies gained, and I am looking at birdies gained in the wind. Again, it's going to play a factor. It always does at an Open Championship. So who can play their best golf in the wind? And we saw on Monday evening in the Data Dive show how birdies were more important than bogeys for the Open Championship, especially at St. Andrews in 2015. So that is a 10% there. And then I said that I wasn't going to put any easy to hit fairways filters in the mixed condition model, and here I am. I've got one. And the reason being, as I continue to think about it, if these fairways are indeed going to be easy to hit, and classified as easy to hit because players are going to hit irons and 3-woods and stingers and all that stuff to find the fairway, you want to see the players that can maximize that and gain distance as the form of advantage. Generally speaking, finding a fairway is an advantage in of itself. But if everybody's doing it, then you need to find the players who are actually gaining distance while still finding the fairways. And another reason that I put fairways easy to hit as well, everything that I've heard from or heard about this week from different people in the industry, golf commentators, all that throughout the whole industry, is that this is very, very, very dried out, very firm, and some people have been on record to say that they've seen balls roll out 60 to 80 yards. I don't know if that's exaggeration. I can only take their word for it. But if that is the case, you're definitely going to want to see who can generate more distance when fairways are easy to hit. If the fairways are indeed that firm, that dried out, they're going to get that much run. So that is why I ended up using fairways easy to hit as the filter for driving distance. I'm a little unsold that it should be 15%. I did have it at 10, and then continuously hearing about how dried out and fast and firm the fairways are this week at St. Andrews, that pushed me to the 15%. It very well could be incorrect, and I need to decrease this, but that is where the extra percent is coming in. We talked about how greens really aren't going to be it's a deceiving statistic this week just because of how big the greens are at St. Andrews. So instead I wanted to look at proximity and proximity in the wind. So that can lead to a number of different things. You know, Shane Lowry, for example, when he won the 2019 Open Championship, he essentially hit line drives and ground balls, to use a baseball term, his way around the course and get close in proximity to that, or in that way. So I definitely want to see who can get close to the hole and be creative doing it with the wind. Par fours, 15%. We saw how, there's 13 par fours here. Or 14, 14 par fours. Only 2 par threes, only 2 par fives. So going to be very, very important to play the par four as well. So 15% there. An extra 5% in the 6 par fours that measure 350 to 400. Put 5% in par fives. We saw that, especially Zach Johnson in 2015, the par threes just didn't matter here at St. Andrews. But the par fives, especially the par 5 fifth, is one of the best scoring opportunities there are on the course. You do need to take advantage of that hole. So I did put 5% on the par fives. And then finally, one of the last things we looked at Monday evening, 3-putt avoidance. And I tried every which way to narrow it down to specifically to St. Andrews, whether that's 3-putt avoidance on bent, 3-putt avoidance on Velcro greens. No matter what I did, the data would go all the way back to 2013, 2014. If I put 3-putt avoidance on bent, you got a whole lot of fast bent surfaces, and that's just not the case here. So I didn't want to put 3-putt avoidance on bent, and there wasn't enough data for 3-putt on Velcro. So I just had to put 3-putt avoidance. And when we look at the rankings and some of the guys that rise in the rankings due to the 3-putt avoidance, you'll see that it kind of makes some sense at who plays Open Championships well, and honestly who is 3-putt avoided well on bent. I'm talking specifically Tony Finau, Tyrell Hatton, but we'll get into that. But that is the reason why it's a very generic 3-putt avoidance. I could not narrow it down to bent or Velcro without jeopardizing the integrity of the data. So there is a look at the mixed condition model that I have built for the Open Championship. The things that could go awry, I don't have any scrambling in here. I really wanted to try to fit some scrambling. And honestly, I took scrambling gained was the last thing I took out, and put an extra 5% in driving distance because of the narratives and the stories that I've heard this week about all that run out. So I really wanted to put scrambling in here, didn't find a way to do it. You can talk about bent putting Velcro putting, again, it's the same with the 3-putt avoidance. It just kind of devalued the integrity of the data going back so far, or not having enough rounds on bent Velcro. Other things here, no around the green, no sand saves. Let's see, anything else that might be neglected or not put in here. I don't know. I think those were the 2 or 3 big things that I really wanted to think about. Scrambling especially wanted to put in there, just couldn't fit it, and then bent putting and so on. So with that, the reveal of the rankings purely in an analytical sense. My top 10 are Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, Cam Smith, Jon Rahm, Xander, Hideki, Matt Fitzpatrick, Max Homa, and Shane Lowry. Probably not a whole lot of surprise, maybe Max Homa being 9th, perhaps, but he has been playing extremely well, as you can see from his metrics. Rory not being in the top 10 might be a bit of a shock, but he's had some issues on a couple of things, particularly the 3-putt avoidance. A lot of that, I think, is at the RBC Canadian, and then Jordan Spieth, but mostly it's the players you would expect. I mean, Max Homa is the only non-9K and above player that made the top 10. Everybody else is at least 9K, so pretty in line with the price board. But you didn't come here for specifically my rankings, so let me bring up the projected ownerships per Fantasy National and chat. And here we go. In the 10Ks, you have 6 players: Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, JT, Colin Morikawa, and Jordan Spieth. You have 2 players that are getting ignored, essentially, for this area. One player in particular not getting used much in the contest at all. And then you have the most, 3rd most, and 5th most, looks like. So 1st, 3rd, 5th. Yeah. So 1st, 3rd, and 5th most projected owned players in the 10K. So let's start with the most projected owned player. It's going to be a little bit of a shock. I would have thought it would have been Justin Thomas. It's Jordan Spieth. Makes a whole lot of sense. He plays St. Andrews very, very well. Plays Open Championships generally very well. He's getting knocked down a little bit in my rankings with the 3-putt avoidance. But other than that, very, very good. I'd say very good to elite on majority of these things. I mean, par 4s, very, very good. Par 5s, very, very good. Elite, I would say, very good at the length of par 4s that are most prevalent here at St. Andrews. The irons have been good. Distance when fairways are easy to hit has been good. Now he can spray it a little bit, which leads you to be a little worrisome, but it does make some sense about Jordan Spieth being the number 1 most projected owned player. He's right at 18%. The 3rd most projected owned player, and then the 2nd in the 10Ks, is Rory at 11-1. And we talked about slightly or briefly why he rated a little bit lower, 14th in my data model. The 3-putt avoidance, he has not been getting a lot of birdies in the wind. He hasn't been giving himself a lot of opportunities he has not been scoring low in the wind. It's been a lot more bogeys avoided as opposed to birdies gained. But he is top 25 in this field in performance in the wind. Number 1 in par 4s. He's number 2 in distance when fairways are easy to hit. So a lot going for Rory. But Rory is one of the 2 or 3 players that I'm going to lose to in a couple of different ways. Rory is almost close to a full fade for me. And it's not that I don't like him. He's 14th, overall in the field. But when I tell you a couple of the players that are really getting ignored, and combining that with the fact that Rory's the most expensive, and the fact that he is the 3rd most projected owned player of all the field, all of that combines to me almost full fading Rory. So he will be one of the players that I lose to. If he plays well, I'll lose. And that is a very dangerous game that I'm playing. I fully accept that. But if he struggles, or even if he makes the cut to a middling to clunker finish, I am gaining a whole lot of win equity on my other contestants. And with the money that I'm saving from Rory, I can squeeze in some more people that I really like coming up in the price board, particularly the 9s and the 8s. So again, it's close to a full fade for Rory for me, but if you want to use him, I don't blame you. You're setting yourself up for a 5v5. It's a combination of the price, the projected ownership, and quite honestly, I'm of the belief that birdies are going to matter more than bogeys this week, and Rory has been better at avoiding bogeys than gaining birdies in the wind. So the two players that aren't getting a whole lot of love in the 10Ks, the most unique in the 10Ks, and I have to agree with the analytic community here, it's Collin Morikawa. He just generally does not play well in the wind. The distance, fairway. When I mentioned that hitting fairways is an advantage in of itself, that's generally where Collin Morikawa gains advantage off the tee. Is when others are missing fairways, he will hit the fairway and therefore give his irons that much more play. But if everybody's playing from the fairway, he's losing a whole lot of that advantage, and he doesn't have the distance to make up for it. And the irons haven't been Collin Morikawa-like either. So I am pretty down on Collin Morikawa. So is, when I say the analytic community, I'm talking specifically members at Fantasy National. But Collin Morikawa is at 7%, and I can't disagree. I don't know how much, if any, I'm going to use Collin Morikawa. The other player, it's completely a shock to me that he is as low projected owned as he is. Jon Rahm is at 8%. Now, he has had his troubles. He did not play well at the Scottish. I understand that. But this is still Jon Rahm. He plays extremely well in the wind. He plays well, whether it's easy, difficult, whatever. He putts well, or well enough. I mean, the Memorial on bench, granted they were lightning bent, still gained a ton. It's not like he's been playing awful. He top 15 the U.S. Open. He made the cut last week at the Genesis, or at the Scottish Open, excuse me. He even made the cut at the PGA. So I don't understand why people are down on Jon Rahm. So if Jon Rahm is truly at 8%, and I'm saving 300 off of Rory, this is one of the reasons why I listed Rory as a full fade. If Jon Rahm is indeed at 8%, I'm going to struggle to believe that. But if he is indeed, even if he's at single digits, if he's under 10%, give me Jon Rahm all day. All day. The only bad thing he has going for him is this range of par fours. But 6th in distance when fairways are easy to hit. He's 6th in total performance in the wind. Top 15 in birdies in the wind. The irons have been lacking. They're still good, but lacking in terms of premier ball striking and players you would associate that with. He's very good in proximity. 3-putt avoidance is fine. I don't understand why Jon Rahm's at 8%. So going under the assumption Jon Rahm's at 8%, I'm firing him up all day, every day. So the rest of the 10Ks, I mentioned Spieth's at 18%. He's the most projected owned. Rory's third most among the entire contest, second in the 10Ks. He's a little over 16.5. We talked about Morikawa at 7, Rahm at 8, so that leaves Justin Thomas just under 14%, and Scotty Scheffler at 11.5%. So generally speaking, these major contests, a lot of people go balanced because they can squeeze in, a say a Will Zalatoris, Shane Lowry, Tyrell Hatton, Louis, Sam Burns type thing. They can get great players in and fit them in at 3 or 4 of them by not coming into the 10Ks. I love me a Jon Rahm, Justin Thomas start because I think there are a couple of 6Ks. I'm not going to go crazy. This isn't going to be full on calls, 6,000 play. But I do think there are a couple 6K plays to be to consider putting in a lineup if you're trying to go against the grain and make a stars and scrubs. But I really like Jon Rahm this week. I mean, Justin Thomas, 14%. I'm going to eat that all day. Number 1 in my rankings. I mean, look, his worst statistic is top 12 in this field of the ones that I've put in the mixed condition model. I'm going to use Justin Thomas. Wind isn't really a factor for him. The players kind of showed that even though he didn't win. I mean, he played magnificent in those conditions at Sawgrass this year. He can create all the shots. What's there to say? So give me Jon Rahm, give me Justin Thomas. I don't mind Spieth, but he's so darn chalky. I don't mind Scheffler, but he's expensive. Like if I'm coming up into this range, I'm going to come to Jon Rahm and Justin Thomas. So I don't need to go to Scheffler or Rory. I'm out on Morikawa. Spieth's a little too chalky for me. So if I come into the 10Ks, it's Rahm and Thomas. And I don't mind using both of them because I think there's a couple of 6Ks and a couple of low 7s that I like. So in the 10Ks, I'm going to put Rahm first, assuming that the 8% is accurate. That's all I can go by right now. Justin Thomas second. I'll go Scheffler third, Spieth fourth, Rory fifth, and Colin sixth. And I mean, Morikawa, I'm just out. I'm not going to use at all, even though I have him starred because he's in the top 40% of my rankings. But Rory's close to a full fade for me as well because I'm so high on Rahm and Thomas. Let's go to the 9Ks. You got Xander, Matt Fitzpatrick, Will Zalatoris, Cam Smith, Patrick Cantlay, Shane Lowry, DJ, Hideki, and Victor Hovland. In here, you have a couple of players that are not getting any use at all. You have the third most projected owned, and fourth most projected owned. So your third most projected owned player makes a whole lot of sense. It's Cam Smith. I'm going to be using some Cam Smith. Love some Cam Smith this week. Plays really well in the wind. He can manufacture his shots, get creative. Number 1 in birdies in the wind. A lot of that probably from the players, but he deserved it. Played extremely well. Now he can lack for some distance sometimes. That could hurt, but par 4 is fine. That the irons are very good lately. 3-putt avoidance, fantastic. Par 5's good. Loves Cam Smith. I'll eat that chalk. And then the fourth most projected owned player is Xander. Xander and Shane Lowry, they've actually been creeping up close to each other, right under 16%. Love Xander this week, coming off the win at the Scottish. I don't know if you say it's a hangover, but did he spend all of his good play at the Scottish? Maybe, but even so, the guy he plays these big events well. Number 3 in strokes gained approach. Number 4 in par 4s. Best at avoiding 3 putts. Even if he doesn't win, he's generally just a solid play. He's very good in these premier fields. And then Shane Lowry, again, 2019 Open champion, second in strokes gained approach, second in the wind, great at par 4s. I like Shane Lowry a lot. So coming into the 9Ks, you've got really good plays here. You're going to be eating some chalk, and that is chalk that I'll eat with you. I can't get away from it. So now coming to the other end of the spectrum, the one player that's not getting a whole lot of use, and I can kind of understand it, is Victor Hovland. Victor Hovland's at 4% or just above 4%. He played really bad at the Scottish, came back to really bite me. I thought it set up really well for him, and he didn't play well. But his irons are still good. He does not play in the wind very well, so that is what's hurting him quite a bit, and I am certainly cautious on Victor Hovland. You see, I mean, the wind game, even though he's a Euro, he just doesn't play very good in the wind. Even though he went to Oklahoma State, he's just not good in the wind. If this does become around the green oriented, he's also going to struggle. The putter's been fine, but he hadn't played well lately, so I'm definitely pumping the brakes on Viktor Hovland. He's at 4%. The one player, and he bit me last week too, is Hideki. He's at 7%. I'm going to fire up Hideki again. I might come back to rue it, but Hideki plays well in the wind, or at least he has lately. I don't understand. I mean, everyone has a bad week. I get it. But it really bit me last week. He plays his best when it's difficult. I don't know if it's going to be difficult, but I think it's going to be average as opposed to easy. But he plays fine in the wind. Even the putter has been okay lately. The irons are still, top notch in the world. Off the tee has never been an issue for Hideki. I don't know. I'm going to go by the numbers. The numbers say Hideki should be really good. He's second in total procs. He's top 20 in performance in the wind. He gets plenty of birdies. Surprisingly, for as much as Hideki is, for all of his woes with the putter, he's really good at avoiding 3 putts. He probably just doesn't 1-putt as much as he should. But he's really good at avoiding 3 putts, which is big here at St. Andrews. Top 15 in irons. Again, could very well come back to bite me 2 weeks in a row. I'm very cautious on Viktor Hovland. I don't see any reason why I'm not firing up Hideki quite a bit this week. So that is a lot of the leverage and the uniqueness that I am gaining this week with Hideki only at 7%. So you have enough reason to worry. I mean, his wind performance last week, not great, but he plays well in the wind. So elsewhere in the 9Ks, like Dustin Johnson's only getting a little bit of love. He's at 8.5%. Don't sleep on DJ either. Top 30 in strokes gained approach. Distance is fine. He can hit his irons long with the best of them. He's good at the length of the par 4s. Now, he has been struggling with 3 putts, but just because DJ went to live, don't sleep on DJ. His game is pretty well suited for St. Andrews. I really like DJ this week. We talked about Shane Lowry. Cantley, okay, he's just solid. Like his performance Sunday at the Scottish Open really proved that I think he's ready to win his major. I don't know if it's this one, but he's going to be close. He's a little bit lower in my rankings. The proximity hasn't been great in the wind. He hasn't played the length of the par 4s very well. The irons are lacking in comparison to others around him in the price board. But I don't mind Patrick Cantley. Cantley is sitting at 11%. That's fair. Zalatoris is at 10.5, number 2 in my rankings. Best in the field in strokes gained approach. Very good in the wind. Now, again, as maligned as Will Zalatoris is with his putter, like Hideki, he's very good at avoiding 3 putts. He just doesn't 1-putt as often as he should. So having Will Zalatoris at a little over 10.5%, I really like that. So in the 9Ks, I'm going to use Xander. I'm going to use Fitzpatrick. I'm going to use Lowry. Those 3 are very, very chalky. Can't help it. I love all those players. Hideki at 7%. Again, this is me going against the grain. It bit me last week. Maybe it bites me again, but the numbers say he should be good, so I'm going to Hideki. I will not sleep on DJ, and I'll be using some Will Zalatoris as well. Let's see. And Cam Smith. I'll be using some Cam Smith as well. So I really like a lot of the 9s, and that's why if you're wanting to go against the grain, you're going to want to do like a Rahm and Thomas or a Rahm and Will Zalatoris, and you're going to have to come into the 6Ks or bottom 7s and be comfortable with it if you want to be unique. But there's a look at the 9Ks. Move to the 8s very quickly. In the 8s, you've got one player that's getting a whole lot of use, and then another one that's fairly middling. The one player that's getting a whole lot of love in the 8Ks is Tony Finau, and it makes a whole lot of sense. We talked about him Monday. very good at avoiding 3 putts. Hits it far when fairways are easy to hit. I mean, he hits that stinger with the half backswing that he has. The irons are good, very good. Par 4 is good. Proximity good. Top 20. There's a lot to like with Tony Finau. A lot of people like Tony Finau. He is looks like the second most projected owned at 17.5%. So there'll be some chalk there. When I use Finau, I'll make sure not to use him with a Xander or a Cam Smith or anything like that. I might have to go something to the effect of like a John Rahm, Tony Finau, or let's say a DJ Hideki Finau type lineup. But he is very, very chalky, but a very good play, I think. The other one in the 8Ks that is getting some love is Tommy Fleetwood at 12.5%. Again, makes some sense. I like where Tommy's game is. I've been on him recently with some mixed results, I'll say. The numbers aren't outstanding, but it's just an Open Championship. Tommy Fleetwood generally plays Open Championships well. That's what I got for you. Elsewhere here in the 8Ks, some names that I want to throw out you. Tyrell Hatton. I talk about him all the time. He is underappreciated in these DFS contests. This sets up well for Tyrell Hatton. Yes, the irons are lackluster for those around him in the price board, but top 20 in performance in the wind. He gets plenty of birdies in the wind. He avoids 3 putts. There's a lot to like with Tyrell Hatton. He's sitting at 9 or 8%. You've got Neiman at 11.5. Not in love with it, but if you're looking for someone different, take a look at Joaquin Neiman. Really good in the wind, very good at getting birdies. Now his putting has been pretty bad, but I don't mind Joaquin Neiman. Elsewhere here, let's see, you've got Brooks at 4.5. 4.5 is pretty low, but I don't know where his game is. You'll see I have Louis unstarred. Louis loves St. Andrews. If you want to go on former course performance and course fit, take Louis, but I don't trust the health. I haven't trusted the health for a while. It's been a while since we've seen him, so I'm just out on Louis. You got Bryson. He is at 3%. Corey Connors 8. Sungjae 6.5. Like, I'm just nowhere near most of these guys. So in the 8Ks, I'm going to use Finau, and the times I do, I'm going to have to find some uniqueness elsewhere. I do like Tyrell Hatton at 8%, and then Tommy Fleetwood I can take it or leave it. If he fits kind of the team and the mold and the pricing, I don't mind it, but I don't have to stretch to use him either. Moving into high sevens, you've got one player that is getting some use in the high sevens. It's Max Homa. Can't disagree. Top 10 in my rankings. The only one that was below 9K in the top 10 of my rankings. Top 10 in strokes gained approach. Top 10 in performance in the wind. Top 15 at avoiding 3 putts and on par 5 scoring. I think he shattered any doubt with his performance at the Scottish Open last week in links style and windy golf. Played extremely well. So, like Tony Finau, if I'm coming to Max Homa, I'm going to have to find some uniqueness elsewhere. But Homa's at 15%. The only other player getting any kind of modicum of use in the high sevens is Adam Scott and Webb Simpson, both of them at 8%. I don't mind Adam Scott, actually. He plays pretty darn well in the wind, is accustomed to these conditions, very good with proximity in the wind. The irons have been okay. 3-putt avoidance is okay. Like I said, I don't mind Adam Scott at 8%. Webb Simpson, a lot less thrilled about. Leishman, no thanks. But everybody else in here is just getting ignored. The Cameron Young, 6.5%. I think a lot of people are off of him or shying away after his performance last week. I'll jump back on Cameron Young, kind of like Hideki. Now, granted, he does not play well in the wind at all. I get it. I don't know. This is kind of my I don't want to say a bold call, but I think Cameron Young's going to be fine this week. My bold call is Hideki and a couple of 6K plays later, but I'll probably use some Cameron Young. Now the wind is rough. I'll give you that. Bobby Mack, the Scot, I think he's primed to win a big tournament. It doesn't look like it's going to be this one. I wouldn't sleep on him even though he's rated so low. But Bobby Mack is sitting at 7%. Let's see. Elsewhere in here, I talked about Leishman. No thanks on Simpson. Scott, I don't mind. Answer, 2.5%. Like, this could be an Abraham Answer, maybe. But the lack of distance really worries you because a lot of his advantage is finding fairways. Horschel, no thanks. Paul Casey, I kind of like Louis. I haven't seen him. He's not healthy. I don't trust it. And as much as Tiger is a great story, same thing. I mean, we saw him at the two majors, the PGA and the Masters. If you want to use him. It's St. Andrews. He loves St. Andrews. It's probably his favorite course, other than Augusta maybe, but I'm just not there with Tiger. So I'll use some Cameron Young. I'm going to use some Houma, but I'm with the rest of the Fantasy National group. There's not a lot in the high sevens that I like here. Moving into the low sevens, you've got one player that's getting a whole lot of love, and that's about it. Although Justin Rose is at 9.5%, he's getting some middling use, and I like Justin Rose. Where did he go? He's at 74. There he is. Irons haven't been good, but very good in proximity. Top 20 in birdies gained when it's windy. I don't mind Justin Rose. I think it's a decent little play in the low sevens. But the one that's getting a whole lot of love is Seamus Power. And this is one that I'm going to fade as well. As much as I'm generally on Seamus Power week after week, he's just not been playing great lately. The irons have been bad. Now, granted, when I say he hadn't been playing great, it's measured rounds. He played great at the U.S. Open and top 25 at the Travelers, but the putting, suspect. Memorial was not good putting. He's kind of like Sung Jae was in the fall. He's playing a bit of whack-a-mole. 1 week his irons are there, and then he'll lose them, but he'll gain all around the green, and then he'll be high on putting and then lose. He's just playing a little bit of whack-a-mole. If he puts it all together, sure. He plays extremely well in the wind. I get it, but I don't know. I'm just kind of out on Seamus Power. He rates pretty darn low in my data model. Distance when fairways are easy to hit is not good. He's been very poor with proximity in the wind. He's been more avoiding bogeys than gaining birdies. Hey, Mark, how you been? Happy open week. Hope all is well. I have been good. Last week, the Scottish was a complete disaster, but we're here to try to make up for that. Bjork to make the cut for me. Yeah, see, I had Bjork last week at the Scottish. One of the few things, and it was very few things that I got right, were some of the Europeans to add into your DFS lineups. Players like Donaldson and Bjork, Thomas Detry. I highlighted some of those players, but that's about the only thing I got right last week for the Scottish. Now, the Barbasol was really good, but we're going to try to correct that. We've made it to the low sevens here. I just talked about Seamus Power. I'm just out on Seamus Power, and he's the one player in the low sevens that's getting a whole lot of love. Let's talk about Mito Pereira. I don't understand why Mito Pereira is sitting at 7.5%. Top 20 in irons. Very good in the wind. He gets his birdies in the wind. They're very good in proximity in the wind. He's just a good wind player. I don't know why Mito is sitting at 7.5%. Give me some Mito Pereira. Love Mito Pereira this week. Now, the putting has been Jekyll and Hyde. That's fair, but I guess people are off of him because he's coming in off 3 straight missed cuts. But, it wasn't too long ago, as in like last month, when he was top 5ing a lot, or at least top 15. Like, the irons are still there. The off the tee is still there. I love Mito Pereira. If he really indeed is at 7.5%, I'll consider that a steal. So give me Mito Pereira. I really like Keegan Bradley. He is sitting at 7.5% like Mito. I like Keegan. We've talked about Hideki. We've talked about Will Zalatoris and their putting. For as much as their putters are maligned, they're very good at not 3-putting, which is a big factor here at St. Andrews. So really like Keegan. Take a look at Harold Varner as well. Like Harold Varner. So a lot of these guys in here in the 73, 72 range, I like. And they're all sitting, hovering in between the 6.5%, 7.5%. But the one player I want to highlight in the low 7s is Gary Woodland. I am going to be on a big limb. This is my play for the low 7s this week. I've been using Gary Woodland a whole lot in my lineups. Top 30 in approach. Proximity is great in the wind. Plays good in the wind. I talked about it at the beginning of the reveal of the rankings. When the wind is a factor, you got to hit these stingers, these bullet irons and all that stuff. When Gary Woodland won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, it's laid out similar to St. Andrews in a way. It's a coastal course. You don't hit driver. You hit irons and 3-woods and whatnot. Slow greens. I really like Gary Woodland this week. So I'm going to be using a whole lot of Gary Woodland. But again, take a look at Varner. Take a look at Keegan. I really like Mito as well. So this is where I've been gaining a whole lot of uniqueness against others, or at least projected per Fantasy National, is in the low 7s. So coming into here allows me to take a Finau or a Houma and not be extremely chalky. Let's see. Others in the 7s, if you wanted to look at the Euros, Merc, like Adrian Maronk, okay. Like Ryan Fox, people were really high on him last week. Use it or leave it. He was okay. A lot of that being it was 8,500. Now at 7,100, it's a lot more palatable. Thomas Peters is a fine player. Doesn't rate out well in my rankings, but a fine player. Jordan L. Smith had a big week last week. But that is one of the conditions that I'll lose to, is that if one of these DP World Tour players or majority DP World Tour players like Moronk or Victor Paris, Wiesberger, if one of these guys, top 10s, I'll just lose to them because as a statistical analyst, there's nothing to analyze if there's no data. So I'll just lose to them. But there's a look at the low 7s, and it looks like Seamus Power is about where your contestants are bottoming out. We move into the 6Ks. Keith Mitchell is at 9%. So I get it. Very, very good with distance. Par 5 scoring, fantastic. He's okay in the wind. Not there with Keith Mitchell, but I understand it. But this is where your fellow contestants are bottoming out. He's at 9%. So let's talk about a couple of 6K plays for you to think about. I'm not advocating jumping in on them and throwing them in majority of your lineups. I've talked about Adrian Arnaud quite a bit. I still think he's a fine play this week. Kirk Kittiyama. Yes, he had a fantastic miracle run last week at the Scottish Open. Kind of like Xander, you got to worry if his best golf for the time period, especially in Scotland, is over with. Did he use it all up essentially? I'm not sold that he has. He is fantastic with distance when fairways are easy to hit. His irons have been very good. For somebody in the 6Ks, you're getting a top 40 iron player. That's pretty hard to do. He plays good in the wind. He gets birdies in the wind. Kittiyama is somebody to really take a look at. he has the propensity to go low. Now, this is a Jekyll and Hyde pick. I mean, he was second last week at the Scottish, but he's second at Mexico Open, third at the Honda. He has a propensity to go low. Why are so many people talking up Lucas Herbert? I was really high on Lucas Herbert last week due to the course conditions and the fact that he had played so darn well at the Renaissance Club historically, and then he just did not play well last week. Lucas Herbert, he is 69 as well. So, he's very, very, very good in the wind. Very good in the wind. So there's a lot of that element. He's a very good putter, which generally plays extremely well at St. Andrews. A lot of times around the green can be a factor. I just don't think it's going to be a factor this week. That's why I'm so low on Lucas Herbert. But I understand the thinking. He won the Bermuda Championship in the fall in some atrocious weather conditions. I mean, it was 40-mile-an-hour winds and rain. And he admitted after the tournament, I love these conditions. So if it gets anything like that, his game is built for Open Championships. That's why people really like Lucas Herbert. I'm actually just not there this week. But I was on Lucas Herbert last week, and it didn't work out for me. But again, coming back to Kittiyama, he has the propensity to go low. It's a boom bust. He'll miss the cut, or he'll essentially top 10. But even at 6,900, if you're getting a top 30 from Kittiyama at the projected ownership that he has, Kittiyama is at 3.5%. Oh yeah, I'll use some Kittiyama. Like I said, top 40 in irons, top 5 in distance when fairways are easy to hit. And again, I've stressed it quite a few times. I'll do it again. I think these fairways are going to be easy to hit because guys are going to club down. Players are going to hit irons and have them chase it. Kittiyama can chase it with the best of them. So I really like Kittiyama. Adrian Arnold I've talked about. A couple others here. Stuart Sink. I don't mind Stuart Sink at all. He generally plays these style of events pretty well too. Very good at proximity in the wind. Plays in the wind. Take a look at Stuart Sink. Not in love with it, but take a gander. But the one I really want to do to highlight, other than Kirk Kittiyama, is Thomas Detry. This is the bottom, the absolute bottom that I am going this week. I'm not going 65, 4, 3, nothing. I'm going 66 at the bottom. I don't mind Thomas Detry. I was on him last week. He played really darn well. I'll run it back with him. He's okay in the wind. Again, you got to factor this is all with American style golf too when he's come over to the States. So the putter is good. He was top 15 at the Corrales, a similar style thing, a coastal course, very slow greens. Mayakoba the same, Bermuda the same. He's top 25 the last 4 PGA Tour events. And then whatever else he's done on the DP World Tour. I like Thomas Detry. I'll use him. He's only at 5.5%. Give me some Thomas Detry. But there is a look at the price board and the way I see it lining up. Those 3, particularly 2 6K plays, Kittiyama, Detry. Take a look at Sink. I like Arnold, but I really wanted to highlight Detry and Kittiyama. So there's a look at the price board there. Before we move on to Excel, let's look at Windfinder. And then I mentioned in the full-on intro of the show, I owe you a mea culpa. I just found this button here in Windfinder today. It's called the Super Forecast. It gives you an hour-by-hour, essentially, look at the wind forecast. So I want you to see what the difference is, because it looks like it's picked up. But if you go to forecast for Thursday, it looks fairly calm. So this is why I was wrong on the wind last week at the Scottish, because I went by this and it doesn't look to be a lot of wind. But when you hit the super forecast, then it picks up. So, like I said, this is me owning it, me apologizing, mea culpa. I found that button today and went, oh, okay. So the way I see it right now, if we're looking at Thursday and Friday, Thursday, fairly, it's by Scotland's terms, fairly innocuous. Just 12 mile-an-hour sustained, gusts maybe to 20, but it picks up in the afternoon. So you've got a Thursday AM favor here. But on Friday, looks like everybody's dealing with wind except for the late group. And you have some tee times that are as late as 4 p.m. So if you've got a tee time that is very early Thursday, very late Friday, I've got that as a pretty significant advantage. But you're going to have to check it because they're not going off split tees. Everybody tees off on hole 1. So you'll have to see if somebody has a true early Thursday, late Friday. Just not sure. We'll check the leaderboard here for Thursday here in a moment. But just do some due diligence. Check PGA Tour leaderboard. Check your tee times. You're definitely got an advantage tomorrow early because 6:30 is the first tee time. So it's going to be very, very calm for those first few groups. And then steadily the wind will pick up. And like I mentioned, there is the last tee time, I believe, is 4:23, 4:15, 4:23, something. It's after 4. By then the wind is really, it's up in its most that it's going to be all day. And the same for Friday. The early tee times are going to be dealing with the wind, and then everybody's going to deal with it until very, very late. Very, very late. So anyone early Thursday and extremely late Friday is going to have an advantage. So speaking of that, just let's take a look at some Thursday tee times. And you see I've got tee times round 1 here. Let's see, Webb, Simpson, Paul Lowry, Min Woo Lee, those are the first 3 off. Let's look at some guys we maybe talked about. Some people like Dean Burmester. I don't mind him. Ian Poulter, Jamie Donaldson, Guido, Philly Phil, Lucas Herbert. Very, very early tee time, so that's probably a contributing factor there. Merck, Kittiyama, another reason why I'm high on Kittiyama. Reed, Hoagie, Joo Hyun Kim, Desham, Tringali, Cam Smith, Brooks Koepka, Seamus Power, so maybe a little bit of why people are on Seamus Power. Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose, Cameron Young, Bobby Mack. Now we're starting to get into a little bit more of this wind starting to pick up in these 9, 10 o'clock tee times. So, starting around, maybe Corey Connors, Horschel Johnson, let's see, Lee Westwood, Poston, Luke List, Arnold getting there, Hughes, Kokrak. Here, the first feature group, Morikawa, Rory, and Xander are at 9:58. So they've probably avoided the worst end of it, but they didn't get the extremely great draw either. They're right in the middle. I'd say they got a favorable one, but not the best. Same with Lowry, JT, and Hovland, Willie Z, Hideki, Finau. And then on the other end of the spectrum, let's look at these late tee times. See who just did not get the best of it for a Thursday. 4:16's last tee off, so €3. Not even going to try to pronounce them. I'll butcher them to high hell. Dinwiddie, Minu Cho, Caitlin, Laurie Cantor, Sahith, Keegan, Sebastian Munoz. So that's a pretty big strike on Keegan. I was high on Keegan, but he's got one of the worst tee times tomorrow. Mito, Sam Burns, Patrick Cantlay, the same. Spieth, Rom Varner, Houma, Fitzpatrick, Tiger. They're teeing off at 3. So they're, the brunt of their round is in the worst weather conditions. It's not the best. Mitchell, Thomas Peters. Let's see, others in here. So there's a look at some of the Thursday tee times, who got some of the best of it, some of the worst of it. But let's move on to Microsoft Excel. Come to here. All right, and let me switch the view for you all. All righty, so let's cover tiers lineups real quick. If you play tiers, I'm not an aficionado with them. I can only go by the assumption of these classic ownerships. But in Tier 1, you have Rory, Scotty Scheffler, and Justin Thomas. Honestly, just give me Justin Thomas. I don't care if he is the chalkiest. I think he's just the best play. Give me JT. Tier 2, you got John Rahm, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, Xander, and DJ. It's hard for me to believe that John Rahm would be one of the pivots in a tier. If John Rahm truly is a pivot, give me John Rahm. You might give me John Rahm anyway. Xander is solid. Don't sleep on DJ either, but in tiers, I think he's a clear third. I'm going to go with Rahm, then Xander, and then DJ, but don't sleep on DJ. Tier 3, Fitzpatrick, Will Z, Cam Smith, Patrick Cantlay, and Victor Hovland. I think it's between these three. I don't think you can make a wrong choice. If it were me, I'll take Will Zalatoris, but it's one of those three, and I think they're all good choices. Tier 4, Shane Lowry, Hideki, Sam Burns, Louis, Tyrell Hatton, Tommy Fleetwood, and Corey Connors. Give me Shane Lowry. I think it's easy. I think he'll be chalky, but I think it's the best play by far. Tier 5, Brooks, Finau, Sungjae, Bryson, Joaquin Niemann, Max Homa, and Cameron Young. Everything wants me to take Finau, but I bet he'll be pretty chalky. So I kind of like Niemann. I think Homa might be okay too. If I'm trying to make the best team, it's Finau, but he's probably chalky, so I'll probably take Niemann in that case, knowing that I've taken chalk in Shane Lowry, and I can't imagine John Rahm or JT being pivots for their tier. Finally, Tier 6, you've got Mark Leishman, Billy Horschel, Tiger, Sergio, Christian Bezadenhout, Harold Varner III, and Russell Henley. We'll cover the first one, the obvious one. If you're a Tiger fan, take Tiger. I'm not gonna use him, but I don't blame you if you do. It's St. Andrews. Otherwise, there's not a lot in here that I like. Maybe Bezadenhout, maybe Varner. Yeah, okay, I'll take Varner. I don't mind Varner. So, I think Tier 6, I'll take Varner, but if you're a Tiger fan, take Tiger. There's a look at the tiers contest. Let's build some classic lineups before we submit our last entries with the Open Championship about 3 to 3.5 hours away. If we're going to build a chalky lineup, we're going to start with the chalkiest of chalky. It's Jordan Spieth. And if they're going Jordan Spieth, they're probably going something to the effect of Jordan Xander or Jordan Cam Smith. I'm going to try to give them Xander. And that means they're probably going to have to go down all the way to Keith Mitchell and Seamus Power. Although they might not have to go Seamus Power. Good Lord, what's going on with that? Oh, that's why. That was weird. There we go. How about that? 7%, not 50,000%. Keith Mitchell and Seamus Power. So they have 8,000 per, essentially. In the 8,000s, they're looking at something to the effect of maybe Tony Finau, and it's 74. It's Seamus Power, so they can't do Finau. They've got Houma, Niemann. Boy, that might be a little tough for them. Because Seamus is at 74. No one else is really getting any love. Maybe they do have to come off of Xander. So we'll go Xander, Cameron Smith. And now they can go, say, a Tony Finau. Who's at 78? Cameron Young, Bobby Max not getting a whole lot of love. Like Max Homa. That's $100 over. But there's a look at a lineup that is probably getting constructed quite a bit or something similar. 14.5%. Pretty chalky. If they're going to go full on, more balanced, then let's go like Xander. Here they would go probably Cam Smith, but let's do Shane Lowry. And then again, I hate to use the same names, but your fellow contestants just aren't coming into the 7Ks much at all. You've got Justin Rose as well. He's at 9.5. It's still the same 8,000 dilemma that we had. So it's, Bryson's at 81, not getting a whole lot of love. You got Tony Finau, Tommy Fleetwood at 86. Like Max Houma would be in this lineup for sure. And then 81, like I said, is Bryson. Maybe Joaquin Niemann. Like there's a more balanced look of a lineup. That's at 13.5%. But if we're going to try to beat that, I'll show you a couple of ways that I've been trying to go about it. I've mentioned that as much as he burned me last week, I'm going to go Hideki. So if I'm trying to build like a pretty balanced looking lineup, I've been going Will Zalatoris, Hideki, and let's see, the 88 is Hatton. I've been starting my looks like this if I'm going a balanced build. And then it still allows me to take somebody like a Finau or a Houma if I really want to. And it's not going to kill me in terms of chalkiness. It's only going to set me up for a 5v5 as opposed to a 3v3, 4v4. But even so, Tommy Fleetwood, I don't mind. He's not as chalky. I said I would be using Cameron Young a little bit. I don't mind Adam Scott. But to bottom out, I'm going to go with Gary Woodland. Actually, no, I lied. I'm going to use Aaron Wise. I'm going to save Gary Woodland for the big lineup that I've been using. But if I bottom out at Aaron Wise, it still gives me 7,800 per. This is Adam Scott, Max Houma, Joaquin Niemann, Webb Simpson maybe. If you want to use Tiger at 75, you can use Tiger. Goes up to 81. That's Bryson, but you could use Niemann or Max Houma in this case. You see, you've got essentially the same kind of upside with the Xander Lowry lineup. You might disagree on Hideki, and that's fine. But the numbers say that he should be pretty good. It might come back to bite me again, but I'll jump back on the Hideki train. So that's an 8.5% lineup. But if I'm really trying to be unique this week, and most of the time in a major, you're needing to build a stars and scrubs if you're wanting to be unique. So in order to do that, I've been going full on bore stars and scrubs. I'm going Jon Rahm and Justin Thomas. As much as Colin Morikawa would give me a whole lot of leverage on people, I'm just not there, as I mentioned in the price board. So I'm going Rahm, Thomas, and I mentioned that there were a couple of 6K plays that I really don't mind. So I'm going to use Thomas Detry. I'm going to try to squeeze in Gary Woodland as the bottom, as the next to last. He might have to be the third into there. But this still gives me 7,500 per for each of these players. In the 6Ks, I don't mind Stuart Sink, Adrian Arnott, Kirk Kittiyama. Like, if you really want to go full on stars and scrubs, and you don't mind using a couple of 6Ks, like you got Kittiyama, Detry, and Gary Woodland. You go Rahm, Thomas, and Niemann or Houma. Like, even if I use Houma, who is a very big chalky play, I'm still under 9% projected match your big GPP contestants. I would put these two up against really anybody, Rahm and Thomas. Houma played extremely well last week. I'm really high on Gary Woodland. The whole low ball flight, chasing irons, slow greens, love it. Kittiyama played well last week. Detry is the Euro that I'm going with. There's a look at a lineup that I've been building quite a bit. If I'm not going as full on 10K as that, I really do like the Rahm Thomas start. But if you're not wanting to use two 6Ks, I'll mix it up here. I'll go Audrey Arnold. Let's see, if we go Rahm, let's try Fitzpatrick. We haven't thrown Fitzpatrick in a lineup yet. So we can go Rahm, Fitzpatrick. In the lower sevens, I mentioned I also don't mind Harold Varner. This is giving us 77 per. If you're a Tiger believer, Justin Rose. I like Mito, even though his tee time isn't the best. But that's, again, we're sitting at that magic 8,100, 8,000 mark. which is a Neiman/Houma. There's an 8.5%, a different look where you go in Rahm and then down to Fitzpatrick, but you're not having to use two 6Ks. So there's a look at some of the lineups that I've been generating and fumbling around with. Merck, it was great to see you again. Thanks for jumping in chat. Hope all has been well. Good luck this week with all of your contests and the wagers that you have made. That goes for everyone out there. Good luck with your contests and the wagers. Thanks for tuning in, watching, listening. I mentioned it Monday that I'd reached 1,000 watch hours. I'll say it again tonight. I'm so very appreciative of it. I enjoy what I do. I'm glad you all come back and partake in analytics and have some fun, banter back and forth. It's a good time, and I'm thankful for you all for the support. So for all of the wagers you've made this week at the Open Championship, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the Open Championship, for all of the wagers and DFS contests for the Barracuda Championship you've entered for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.